Well, hello. You're listening to the No Limits Mahalo Triathlon podcast, episode number 53. In this episode, we talk about when you feel like quitting. This is something that all of us go through, right? There's so many things that we may start and may never finish because we get to a point where, you know what, I just don't want to finish it. I want to quit. It happens to you. It happens to me. And we're going to talk about this in this podcast. So stay tuned. Hi, I'm Todd Malcolm, and I've been in the sport of triathlon for over 25 years. I'm head coach of a triathlon group you've probably never heard of. We don't train all the time, and we don't have goals to win races. In fact, our motivation is the exact opposite. We train for triathlons in addition to living busy lives with the goal of staying in shape and challenging ourselves in this amazing sport of triathlon. We are triathletes with no limits, and this is your map to triathlon. Okay, so episode 53, when you feel like quitting. Let's go back to sometimes, talk about myself a little bit, times that I have quit, some things that I've quit. Just recently, I bought a few books and I don't finish them all. I don't. So I don't know, I quit halfway, 3/4 through. It happens, unless it's a really good book, there's a good chance I won't finish it. So, I quit books. Not proud to say it, but it's true. In training, sometimes if I have one more set to go, I'm like, I don't want to do it. I quit. Sometimes in the morning, I don't want to wake up to do the training. I don't want to do it. I have skipped a whole day. I skipped a whole week of training. It's true. Didn't want to do it, so I quit. My first DNF, I'm trying to think back here. I've been in the sport for a long time, over 25 years. Done over 100 races, 100 triathlons, lots of running events, etc. I don't count anymore. I used to count. And I do have athletes that say, you know what, Todd, I'm on my 15th triathlon or whatever, or second 70.3. And I just smile and go, yeah, I remember those days. I remember those days and of counting. And yeah, I used to know all the numbers. And now all I know is that it's over 100. And Ironman's easy to count. So I've competed in 16 Ironman. That one's easy. The other ones, I'm not even going to count. But doing a little bit of thinking for this podcast, I'm like, hey, what was my first DNF? Yes, I have DNF. DNF, if you don't know, stands for did not finish. So you start a race, but you did not finish it. It happens to me, and it will most likely happen to you. And if you think it's not, well, there's a good chance you're just kidding yourself, because there are some things that you just cannot control in this world, and sometimes it's your only option is to pull out of a race and DNF. So my first DNF was in a duathlon many, many years ago. I can't even tell you what year it was. I don't know. Late 90s maybe, early 2000s, somewhere around there. But I think late 90s. The race was not that important. It wasn't important at all to me. And I think when I think about it, I just wasn't feeling it that day. I didn't have any experience with the duathlon. I think I went out too hard in the bike. No, too hard in the first run. And then the bike was just horrible. I was having zero fun. And I just think I said, you know what? I don't need to do this. This race doesn't mean anything to me. I wasn't having any fun. And I think I just pulled the plug and said, I'm done. I just didn't want to continue. And I didn't really have a reason. It was like I didn't want to do it. Just didn't want to do it. And I think that's the kind of the reasoning that I came to on that day. Just I didn't want to do it. And I was okay with that. So my first DNF in a triathlon was a few weeks before my first Ironman. My first Ironman was in 1997 in Ironman Canada. That took place in Penticton. And that summer, I think I did 7 triathlons of all different distances: sprint, Olympic, half Ironman, and this one was a sprint. The race that the triathlon that I DNF'd in, and you know what? In my opinion, this was my last stepping stone to get ready for the Ironman, and I just felt the race is so poorly organized. And yes, back then I was super, super critical. I really was. I'm not going to lie. It's true. But everything was wrong about the race. It was late to start. The temperature was cold. I think it was raining. I was freezing. There was really no real direction on the swim. The road conditions were horrible. It was bumpy. Pieces of the bike were falling apart. I had to pull over and put them back on. And I was in such a bad mental state. I just, after the bike, I can't continue. I cannot continue with this race. I was just so frustrated. I'm like, ah! And so again, zero fun. I just pulled the plug. And then, now the thing is look, I've done over 100 triathlons. I'm not trying to brag at all. It's just that when you're in a sport for 25 years and you do, a few races every year, they add up. They just do. They just add up. But I've had 2 DNFs in a full distance Ironman. It's true. My first one, I pulled out 3/4 of the way into the bike. What happened? What happened was that I was unknowingly, I was sick. So I think on the day of the race, even though I raced, I got to a point in the race like I have zero energy. Like, I'm done. And an Ironman's a very long way to go, and I still had a ways to go. I had to climb a mountain, come down it, and then come into town, and I was done. I'm like, I have nothing left. I'm done. And right after the race, I was sick. I was sick for a full week, and so that showed me that, look, hindsight, I shouldn't have been racing that day. But even though I got up and raced, so I was sick that day. My second DNF was the year after. So I DNF'd 2 years in a row at the same Ironman, and I went out too hard. No, I'm not going to say I went out too hard. I went out hard because I wanted to be competitive. I was hoping to qualify for Hawaii. And then when I came to almost the exact same spot that I DNF'd in the year before, I pulled the plug. Why did I pull the plug? The weather was absolute crap. It was hail. It was rain. I was freezing. When I was deciding what to wear that day, I looked at the forecast, as we all do. And I think back then, I think the weather, we didn't have apps. We didn't have cell phones, all these things, right? So you had to, I don't know, however we checked the weather back then, you check that weather and, you have to make a guess. And I didn't bring extra clothes with me in case it rained. So when it was raining, and I gambled not to bring those gear because I wanted to be competitive. But once I got to that point in the race, oh my gosh, I was really, really cold. We had hail, rain, and I looked up and there's nothing but black skies, like nothing but black skies towards Penticton. I had zero hope. I was frozen, and I was witnessing, I was watching people in front of me crashing on their bikes going down these mountain passes. And I came along one spot where an ambulance was picking a person up the road. And so here I am freezing, right? I look at the sky and it's complete blackness. I don't have any clothes to put on in T2. I'm just going to race in what I had. I got 2 little boys, waiting for me. And I just thought, what, it's not worth it. This is not worth it. If I crash coming down these hills and I get hurt, it's not worth it. And again, zero fun. I had zero motivation to go forward. I'm like, I'm already, and that's what sometimes is tricky with racing. Is in the beginning, you're so keen to get out and do this race because it's something you've never done before. You go, can I do this? Right? There's all these big questions of whether you can or how fast can you do it. But once you've done a bunch of them, that question's gone. The question is gone. You can do it. So there's not that challenge of, I really got to get this done. So that's gone. And you're like, you know what? For me, I had to make a decision of my boys at home, and they were the most important thing ever. And so I'm like, I can't crash. I cannot crash. I need to go home and be the dad. So I pulled up, and I felt that I made a good decision, right? So I quit. Now, so what happens? What happens after you quit? This is something that you usually don't think about until after you quit, right? You don't think about that. You just think you're in the moment and you're thinking, do I want to continue to keep going on in this race, or do I want to pull the plug? Now, after my second Ironman DNF, this is kind of funny, sort of funny, maybe not. My kids, because they came out to that race, and my family hardly ever comes out to do these to cheer for me. It's just how it is. Other families come out and cheer them on, but it's my job, so I'm there to support my athletes, and it's difficult to have my family there and athletes there because I finally get torn between the two, and no one wins. So I decided a while ago that it's best not for the family to come. But this year they came. They came, and I remember that when I showed up, I hitchhiked. Once I decided to quit in that Ironman race, I pulled out my thumb and I hitchhiked. Yeah, within 5 minutes, truck pulled over. I threw the bike in the back, and he drove me into Penticton to the hotel, and my family and kids were like, what's going on, right? They're all confused. And after that, seriously, I bet you for 2 years. And again, my kids are really small, right? So maybe they're probably 3 and 5 at that time. But the next 2 years, every time I'd go off to do a race, they're like, "Hey, Dad, how are you going to finish this one?" And it's kind of, it's kind of funny. And they're small, and they didn't really know. But I would always tell them, like, look, I'm going to do my absolute best, guys. That's what I want to do. But I'm going to tell you that if things happen where I have to decide to make a decision to stop the race, I will do that. And so those are life lessons that I taught my kids, that it's okay to pull the plug on things. And it's okay. And oftentimes when my athletes DNF, I always say, you know what? There's going to be many more races for you to shine at. And I remember that when I DNF'd, someone sent me that reminder, and I thought, you know what? That's such a great reminder to think about, is that there are going to be many more races for you to shine. Like, that Rocky movie, when he gets knocked down, one of his favorite sayings is, it doesn't matter how hard you get knocked down, it's how you come back up. Something like that, right? So the idea is, how do you come back from your defeats or when you quit? But what I didn't realize would happen is after that is how my athletes would respond. So I pulled out of the race. I explained to them why, but my athletes had mixed feelings. Half of them were totally supported me, and half of them totally did not. And there's a lot of chit chat that was happening in the background about, oh my gosh, this is Coach Todd and his DNF. And you know what? When you hear that, those comments back there, it's really hard to hear, right? But it really shows you who supports you and who doesn't. And that can be a really harsh thing to see. And for me, that was a really tough lesson to learn. And look, when it happens to you, if you come back from an Ironman, and there's going to be some people that you're like, why would you say that? Why would you say something like that? And they will say silly things like, how come you couldn't finish, or what happened, or you couldn't, you weren't strong enough, or whatever it's going to be. But there are going to be some people that tell you that. And so just prepare for some negativity from people that you thought you were really, really close, and you are very close to. But it's definitely is going to be a bit of a shocker. It was for me anyways. I want to talk to you about another race. This is, you might think, oh, Todd, you've quit a lot of things. And the reality is I haven't. Over 100 races, I think I've quit. Let's see if I can add up to them. 1, 2, I think it's only 3 races. Only 3 races. 2 Ironmans and 1 duathlon, which I think is really, really good. No. So 2 Ironmans, 1 duathlon, and 1 triathlon. That's 4 events. But here's another story. Is one year I showed up to race an Olympic distance race, and it was my Father's Day gift from the family. And I remember driving into the parking lot, and it was pouring. I mean, it was pouring cats and dogs. It was just pouring. And I'm like, should I race? Shouldn't I race? And I got all of my stuff out of the car, and I'm like, maybe I shouldn't race. And what happened is I actually locked my keys in the car. I'm like, I guess I have to race now, because I couldn't get back in the car. So I take all my stuff, and I go to transition. I set it all up in the rain, and there were multiple waves that day, and I was in one of the later waves. And I was watching the earlier waves go in, and look, the water was freezing. Like, it was early racing here in Alberta, Canada. The lake was cold. I bet it was like 12 degrees. 12 degrees outside temperature was probably less than 12 degrees, so it was cold. And I was watching them going in and coming out, and the athletes did not look happy at all. And I was standing there, and I did a lot of races. at that point. I bet you maybe 75 races under my belt. And I remember turning to a friend of mine and said, you know what? I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to leave my stuff in transition. I'm just going to leave it there. I'll pick it up after the race. And that's what I did. And I considered that as this is a donation to the race. You know what? And it was a very, very good lesson for me. And because maybe you're the same way, that when you sign up for an event, whether it's $25, $50, $300, $400, $1,000, whatever it is, just because you pay that money, does not mean you have to do it. And I that wasn't even a possibility before that. So when I would enter in a race, I know a lot of people have that same idea, is that once you register and put some money down, there's no way you're going to quit. You're going to do whatever it takes to get there. And I am similar, but I also know that if the timing and things aren't right, it's okay to pull the plug and do a DNS. DNS stands for did not start the race. So that was a DNS start. And I felt that I made the right choice on that day, because as I was watching people coming in on the bike, they were frozen. There were some elite guys coming in. They couldn't move their arms out of the arrow position. They were stuck that way because they were frozen. I know that another lady was on a bike, multiple bike crashes, and she ended up breaking her leg. I'm like, ay. I'm glad I didn't go out there. I'm glad I didn't go out. So sometimes when you are racing or training, right, and we all have these, the good angel and the bad angel, like the devil and the devil and an angel, and you gotta, they're whispering in your ear what to do. Oh, go a little harder. Back off. Why are you going so hard? Go harder, right? So each day, who are you going to listen to? Like, which one are you going to listen to? And sometimes your intuition is good. So if your gut is telling you to do something, and it may be something that no one else would do, like you're going against the flow, that may be the best thing to do. So listen to what's going on, the chatter in your head, and listen to your gut. Because I do believe that we can make the right decisions. Now, every time you quit or you feel like quitting, you're going to learn a little bit more about yourself. You're going to learn about things you didn't know before. And these things will either build you up or they're going to knock you down. And I can recall doing some track workouts. And I'm like, I'm tired. And the coach says, okay, let's do 2 more. I'm like, I don't want to do 2 more. But then another athlete says, come on, Todd, let's do this. So we get together and we do 2 more. And by pushing and doing 2 more, especially after I want to quit, it's like, sometimes that's the best feeling ever. It's the best feeling ever. And sometimes if the coach said, okay, 2 more, athlete says, come on, Todd, do 2 more. Like, nope, I'm not going to do it. And you sit out and you watch them do 2 more and you realize, oh my gosh, it only took 4 minutes to do 2 more. I could have done 2 more. I could have dug deeper, and you feel horrible for not doing it. So I always think about, how are you going to feel if you quit? Are you going to be okay with yourself? Now, I want to tell you another story that happened recently with one of my athletes. Let me just get it here. I have it written down. Now, where do I have it? Okay, so we were doing an open water swim, and this athlete was struggling quite a bit. And she actually left the workout. I didn't even know. So afterwards, I'm like, where'd you go? So text her afterwards. Hey, how's it going? You left early. And then I found out, she's saying, you know what? I had the worst swim ever. I had a panic attack, and it was bad. She's training for a 70.3. And at the end of the text, she's like, you know what? I'm not going to be ready for this race. And I think I'm wasting your time. I'm wasting my money, coach. And so I'm like, oh no. So I have to go respond to her right away. So I responded to her to a text. And then I even did a Facebook Live. And I know that she's on Facebook Live. So I'm like, I'm hoping you're watching this. And I don't usually do Facebook Lives in the evening, but I did one. And I deleted it because I got a little emotional on it. Sometimes I do. It's true. So when I do that, I felt a little vulnerable. So I deleted it. But the reason I put it up there is for her to see it and know that she's supported. And so that worked well. And then I said, just show up the next day. And we're biking the next day. And this turned out to be another tough workout. And she left again early, feeling sad again. So it's almost like, it feels like this is getting worse and worse. It's like, the spiral of despair. It's like, I can't do this. Just, I think one saying a lot of people have in their heads, like, oh, I suck at this. Why am I doing this? I shouldn't be doing this. I'm too old. I'm too fat. I'm too skinny. I shouldn't be here. Whatever's popping around in your head, you're like, right? That chatter is just loud, telling you to quit. Why are you doing this? You should not be doing this. This is not your sport. And then I recalled watching her putting on her suit. And it looked like a lot of trouble. And I went over and said, hey, is your suit wet? She says, no. It's going to get wet, but it's not wet now. Why? Because I go, well, it looks like you're having a lot of trouble putting it on. And then after the fact, I said, you know what? I think the suit's too small. I think you need a bigger suit. And I just said that, and I know that probably wasn't good for her either, because she just bought the suit, and you can't take the suit back. And it's like, I didn't want to say that because I knew that would add one more thing to the pile. But you know what? By me saying that, she got a new suit, and she showed up the next weekend. And look, I want to also say that there's the full support system of our crew was supporting her and encouraging her to keep going, to keep moving forward. Don't quit. You can do this. And she's tough. She's one of the toughest people I know. I'm like, you can't quit. You can't quit. You got this. You got this. And you know what? The next weekend, she showed up with a bigger suit. And what we did is we swim around the lake, and the lake is 2K. And we all swim, and there's various groups. I'm in with the faster group. And so I get out, and then I'm waiting for everyone to finish. And I'm standing on the dock, and I see her coming in, and she's like, Todd, guess what? I swam the whole lake. Oh my gosh, she was so excited. She was like so excited. Super, super excited. And so we're all very proud of her. So that's the first time ever going around the lake. So that's 2K swim. And that's a huge thing. It's a huge thing for someone who is not confident in the water. And when you have like a bad panic attack and you realize this is not working, you start to question the whole thing. Can I really do this? But getting in a bigger wetsuit and getting around that lake, and now, you know what, she's been around the lake at least three times for sure, and I think tomorrow is going to be the fourth time. And that's beyond fantastic. From a coaching perspective, I always want to see my athletes improve, and once they have those moments of greatness and like, oh my gosh, it was so good, and you can see it when people go, oh my gosh, I can do this. And the little switch in your brain switches from maybe, I can't do it, maybe halfway to maybe I can, but then it goes all the way up to yes, I can. And once you realize that you can do it, boom, it's hard to stop you. And it's great to see people do that. But yeah, sometimes, when we feel like quitting, we just need to keep going or keep moving forward. And often the biggest breakthroughs are literally just around the corner, right? So keep the faith that everything's going to work out. Share your wins and losses with your group so that others can help you when it's needed. And on social media, people like to post a lot of things where we look good and our positive things, our best pictures, etc., etc. But sometimes it's good to post things that show the true reality of what's going on. We have bad days. We all have bad days, and that's why, for me, I went Facebook Live and showed, look, this is just reality, and I can't control who's watching. But sometimes life is not so good, but we have to deal with it and keep moving forward. That's what I should have that tattooed on my body some places. Keep moving forward, because I think it's really quite good. And remember, we all of us, will have days when we feel like quitting. It's just part of being alive. And I do want to remind you that, look, from the stories I told you earlier in this podcast about my racing stories about Ironman quitting and duathlon and the Olympic distance. Sometimes it's okay. Sometimes it's a right decision to quit, right? But then other times it's not, and we need to keep pushing forward. And I can tell you this, I've done like 16 Ironmans, right? I remember getting to, I think it was an Ironman number 12. I'm in Whistler. If you've ever done the Whistler Ironman, oh my gosh, mountains, seriously, mountains. And we're coming back after the halfway point. coming out of Pemberton, coming up, and we're climbing this mountain. It's like, oh my God. It seemed like it never ended. And I got to a point where I go, why am I doing this? Todd, why are you doing this? Why don't you just quit? Why don't you? You've done enough. You've done 12 Ironmans or whatever it is. You've done enough. Why are you doing it more? Just stop. Just quit. That's what's going on. That voice was like on volume 10 in my head going, just stop, just stop. It's so much easier if you stop. And I wanted to tell you that when that voice is in your head telling you to stop, you have to have the other voice that maybe it's on, volume 1, because the other one's on volume 10. You need to turn down the volume of the one that's screaming, you got to quit. And you got to turn up the volume of your cheerleader. And I do believe that we are our best cheerleaders and our worst critics ourselves. We totally are. And so when I recognized I had this voice saying quit on volume 10, I'm like, I got to dial that down. And I got to take this other voice and dial it up to number 10. And this voice that's quiet is my gratitude voice. And I'm like, you know what? No. Look where I am. I'm riding a bike. I'm in an Ironman. Look at all these people I got to race with. Look at this beautiful day. Look at this mountains, etc., etc., etc. I keep going through the list of things I need to be grateful for. And I kid you not, I get out of my funk pretty fast. Maybe not that fast because you got to dig yourself deep, but you got to dig yourself out a deep hole. But the thing is, you can get it out. And especially if that other voice is on really, really high, sometimes it takes a while to get that volume down and turn that one other voice up. But it's worth it. It definitely is worth it. Now, I also want to say too that, did you know that after my second DNF at Ironman, I was driving back, kids are in the back, and I turned to my wife. I wasn't driving because I was exhausted. I was like in a super bad funk. Do you ever get in bad funks when you just things aren't going well? Well, that's where I was. I was in a bad funk. I remember even watching the Ironman, this, as it went through, because I wasn't running. I'm sitting on the sidelines and watching all these people run. I wasn't happy at all. I'm like, why are you guys doing this? I saw people, suffering and pushing themselves to get to the end. I'm like, why would you do that? I just like, this is not right. This is not right. Like I said, I was in a really bad funk. I'm not there anymore, thank goodness. But I was in a bad state. And I turned to my wife as we were driving home. And I said, you know what? That's it. I'm never doing another Ironman again. I'm going to stick to Olympic distance. I'm good at that. Why do I want to do an Ironman? I'm not good at this. 2 in a row. I didn't finish. And then she turned to me and said, you know what? Because of that, Todd, you need to do another one. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what I said to her. I just shook my head and said, I'm not doing another one. And I was so convinced I'm not going to do another one that, when I got home, I started writing. I'm on my laptop, and I was writing a blog post, and I titled it My Last Ironman, and I was about to submit it, but something inside said, don't do it. And so I didn't submit it, and that was my 7th Ironman. And you know what? I'm really glad I didn't quit doing Ironmans after that, because now since then I've done numerous 7.3s, including 2 world championships, 9 more full Ironmans. Now I haven't quit a single one, even though you get to a point where you feel like you could or you want to, but I never did. And next year I have 2 more planned. And yeah, I still love it a lot. This year is, if you're listening in the future, this is 2020 and the year of COVID where nothing is happening. So my 2 Ironmans, one was Challenge Roth and one was Ironman Canada. They've both been pushed to 2021. Hopefully they run in 2021. But I do want to say that, look, we all are going to have days when we feel like quitting. It is absolutely normal. And some days, you know what? It's good to quit. And other days, well, just keep pushing forward, keep moving forward. Yeah, and it's normal. And I also want to remind you that if you do get to a point where you're like, this is just not feeling good, I want to quit, reach out to someone. Reach out to your coach, reach out to your training partners, and maybe it is time to quit. But until you try, go through all these routes of finding out, why do I want to quit? And maybe someone has an answer for you. And sometimes, it's okay to take a break, because Ironman will always be here. At least I hope it will be here. But that's it. Okay, guys. Thank you very much for listening. I look forward to our next podcast together. I'm Coach Todd. Mahalo. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Hey, if you have any questions, please send me a note. You can contact me at Instagram at No Limits Coach and Facebook at No Limits Try. If you enjoyed this podcast, please leave a comment and a review on iTunes. I appreciate all reviews and questions. Happy training, and we'll talk soon.